Alright guys, hello, welcome back to another video. This one's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a video I could have made about, I don't know, well over a year ago, but I haven't been posting videos for like, I don't know, 2 years, so I'll have to catch up right now to the best of my ability. Today I want to talk semi-briefly. This is something that I could talk about for a long period of time if I had the material to discuss readily at hand, but I kind of wish to just rant a little bit about it. And the topic, of course, is the OCE server for Overwatch. And I know it's the pride and joy of this great country. However, it does have some fucking downsides. So on screen, I want to show you a couple of things. This is not news to anybody that this sort of thing is possible. And if you've played on the server, you've probably seen it yourself if you're high rating. But what I want to say, first of all, is that these games, even though they're dog shit, they're not the most fun games to play in the world, that's not the part that I'm entirely displeased about. We had these dynamics in probably worse function in the earlier seasons. Seasons 4 and 5, maybe even 3. I can't really quite remember. It's been quite some time. But the idea of an unbalanced game is not new to an Australian player with a high elo. What changed, however, since the earlier seasons is the amount of skill rating that we get for playing those matches. And compared to the older days, it simply just doesn't stack up. And as a result, if you're a high-rated player on a low-population server, this isn't exclusive to Australia, by the way. It's any server where, in general, you are higher rated than the rest of the player base that you share the server with. If you're the high outlier, you're going to get punished as a result of the system in play. The matchmaking system in Overwatch is not designed for low population servers. It's designed for a healthy player base in which all 12 players are more or less the same rating, or at least given like within 50 to 100 SR of one another. When you play on a low population server like Australia and you're a high rated player, you're an outlier. You don't have 11 other people who are the same rating as you. There's been things to do to like manipulate this, like the Q Now servers where like Australians will join Discord servers where they coordinate that they all queue at the same time, so they have the highest chance of popping into a higher elo lobby. It's kind of cute, but ideally you don't want to resort to such measures. You just want to have it inbuilt into the infrastructure of the matchmaker that sort of thing would occur, that you would receive those matches that you should be, in terms of if you played on a different server, a more healthy server, you should be entitled to playing those games. But I digress. Australians, they find their own little solutions to the pretty terrible problem that is the server that they are looking to play on. But what I was getting at before is that not necessarily are the problems the games themselves. We can't change the games we're going to find. We can make the matchmaker more strict, we can sit in queues longer, and we can hold our breath a little bit longer in the hopes that we find a game that's just a little higher on the skill rating department, so we don't get fisted when we fucking lose that game inevitably due to some fucking variable that you can't control, because, newsflash, Overwatch is pretty fucking complicated, and if you're a high-rated player in a low-rated match, there's a lot you can't control, so when you lose that game, it feels quite bad, because you've lost a game that's felt out of your control, and you've lost it, you've been punished for doing so more so than you would if you lost a regular game. You've lost an increased amount of elo. So what I'll pop on screen here. I was doing an experiment in what is it? You can see the tweet. I forget the fucking date of it, but it wasn't too long ago. So the mechanics are still in play. If I repeated the same thing again, I would get similar results, is essentially what I'm getting at. It's relevant information. I wish I played more games, but dude, I got sick of it. I got to the point where I started playing on NA servers. I'll talk about NA in a little bit relative to OCE, but essentially what it boils down to is that we are receiving a shitload less SR for wins than we are for losses if we are higher rated players, and we cannot do anything that evens this out. An Australian getting plus 25 elo at 4,000 rating is some unicorn level shit. Finding a match that is of that high rating is very, very rare. And as I said before, if we're not intentionally manipulating the matches in the first place to find such games, we're probably not going to come across a game where a 4,000 rated player is going to get that plus 25. This is where NA kind of sets the standard of what could be possible with this matchmaking system. I don't believe the matchmaking system is inherently terrible. I think it's really well designed. It's just not designed for Australians. It's not designed for any server that has a lower population, because we get these discrepancies. I can't recall exactly the number, but I showed you the picture. It was something like an average of 22 elo for a match gained and negative 27 for a loss, when that doesn't, like, necessarily, if you play, like, one play session, it's like, oh, you're Grandmaster and you're playing against Diamonds, it's like, boo-hoo. Like, yes, fucking boo-hoo. It makes me sad as fuck, because if you play 1,000 matches with that ratio and you solo queue, like most of the time that I do, and I don't want to even bring into, like, if it's a support or a DPS or a main tank, because certain classes have certain, I don't know, caps of ability to influence a match. Don't want to get into that necessarily. However, the main point is that we get a shitload less for when we win versus how much we lose. And I can't recall exactly which season it was, but I had to play about 50 hours with a 57% win rate, I think it was, in the end, to hit GM. It was something ridiculous. At least my Ana win rate was 57%. And if you've ever watched my content, you fucking know that I don't play other heroes very often. So, if, like, there might be something that reduces it to, like, 55.6 or something, but long story short, I had to win a lot of games over a long period of time to get Grandmaster. So I want to talk about NA just for a little bit. If you're not from Australia and you're wondering why Australians consider NA to be freelo, like to be easy to climb rating, it's because of this effect of getting smaller amounts of elo not being necessarily as big of a deal when we play on NA. And this even goes for, like, peak time matches. Our time, the peak time matches that we experience is approximately, it's like 5 in the morning in US West, and the match quality at 5 in the morning on US West is of higher match quality than we experience during our peak times. And as a result, the SR averages of those matches are much more likely to be higher, and you don't receive those extremely punishing negative 27s and 28s and 30s, and fuck me, the screenshots from earlier, they were like negative 31s. They're the real kick in the balls. They're the ones where you're like, what could be the worst thing that happens at queuing at off-peak times at GM? I wonder what could happen. It couldn't be that bad, right? And then dunk, you get hit in the face with this fucking screenshot, and you lose 31 elo in about 6 minutes flat. It sucks ass. It's fucking terrible. And there's nothing aside from performance-based SR that has existed in the past that has remedied such a problem. Back in the earlier seasons, like seasons 4 and 5, it was possible for Australians to get higher elo in these low-rated matches because their performance could compensate for the amount of SR that they weren't receiving naturally from the matchmaker. So, like, in these games where I'd get plus 22, if I popped off and I fragged like crazy, or my heals per 10 or whatever the fuck metric they used, I could influence the amount of elo I was receiving in those matches. And I could soften the blow. I could soften the blow received by receiving a low quality match, because I could still gain a decent amount of elo if I played well. And what kind of wasn't obvious to me until I started playing on NA is that those high ratings that I was getting back in the day of seasons 4 or seasons 5, like it's tempting to have the perspective, or perhaps even the thought that maybe I didn't deserve that rating. Maybe I didn't deserve that rating, maybe 4.3k. Maybe that's a little inflated. Maybe I was abusing the system back in the day, and now it's just normal. You know, I'm playing at a normal thing. I'm not getting inflated elo from performance-based SR because I'm not farming low diamonds. But what was interesting is that when I started playing on North American servers with about 200 ping, no less, I started getting those ratings again. Ratings that I had not achieved in over 10 seasons of Overwatch. I was getting again with 200 ping. So it begs the question, when you're a lower rated player on the Australian server due to the elo distribution being quite terrible, aka getting shit SR for wins and losing a lot for losses, is that your true elo? Which is your true elo? Is it the elo you have on 200 ping? Is it the elo you had in Season 4 when performance-based SR was in play? Or is your elo the elo that you're at on the server that you're playing on, regardless of the variables that make it unfortunate and suboptimal to play on? Which of these is our true elo? It's a kind of thing that's probably, I would say, important to consider due to the simple fact that Australians playing Overwatch, if you want to be competitive and you want to get the best rating possible, it makes sense that you would desire that the rating that you actually deserve for being the player that you actually are, rather than being a sort of, kind of munted version of what your elo is, because it's influenced by a server that is not actually designed to represent your skill rating. And the reason why having a poor representation of your true skill rating to be quite a frustrating thing is because Overwatch is obviously a competitive game, and especially when you are playing at the highest levels, you have the desire to somehow represent that. And in Overwatch, the best way we can represent this is the top 500 leaderboard, of course. If you're a borderline top 500 player, it's not a good feeling to know that you're being shut out because of variables that you cannot control. You cannot play on the North American server with a low ping to have the same opportunity to get the spot that you, on paper, could actually deserve. But you receive the disadvantage of being shot out of a fucking... Actually, let's change up the language there. Just being born in Australia, yeah? Just because you live in Australia, does that mean that you should be reduced in your opportunity to receive a skill rating that truly represents your skill in this game? Because we're competing against players on a leaderboard who do have such an opportunity. And is it fair? Is it fair that Australians need to compete with these players? I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if there can be anything that could be done. I just think at the end of the day, when you put American players versus Australian players, no matter which way you slice it, whether it's the Australians who remain on the server or they move over and play with VPNs on, disadvantageous ping to get their slots on top 500, at the end of the day, is it fair that we are on the same leaderboard? Or could it be possible that there's something that can be done to bridge the gap, or at least give Australians a true representation of how skilled they actually are?